Syria has deployed hundreds of troops backed by tanks and armoured vehicles in a determined effort to crack down on anti-government protests. One activist said 18 people have been killed, with many others wounded or missing. The United States is now considering targeted sanctions against President Assad's regime, while Britain is helping to prepare a statement at the United Nations condemning the violence. The worst of the violence was in the southern city of Deraa, where the popular uprising first began a month ago. 3 days after President Assad lifted the national state of emergency, he sent tanks in against people gathering for funerals of murdered protesters. One can only imagine the terror of the crowds who'd gathered to bury their dead. This is Deraa, the heart of the popular uprising that began here more than a month ago. Syrian security forces have, according to human rights groups, killed more than 350 civilians here since then, a third just in the past 3 days. Early this morning, tanks and troops launched a major attack on the city, shelling targets. With foreign journalists mostly expelled, what footage we have is emerging via social networking websites. At the same time, Syria today closed the border with nearby Jordan, stopping civilian refugees who'd been fleeing and trapping those Syrians trying to return to their families. This woman was desperate to get back to Deraa, even though she knew about the tanks.
They killed them. My family is dying. Bodies are on the ground. I was with them. My family is dying.
In the capital Damascus, where government troops are also continuing their crackdown on protests, this distressing footage emerged online today of a severely injured young girl who'd apparently been shot by soldiers. President Assad's war on the protesters continues on state TV as well. Today it was broadcasting footage apparently of 7 soldiers' funerals, complete with guards of honour and crowds carrying placards of their beloved president. Diplomatic pressure is growing, but attention is divided with the continuing crisis in Libya. Today, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights called for an immediate halt to the Syrian government's military operations and for detained activists to be freed. And the White House condemned what it called the brutal violence as completely deplorable and unacceptable.
We continue to look for ways and are pursuing a range of possible policy options, including targeted sanctions to respond to the crackdown in Syria and to make clear that this behavior is unacceptable.
Having watched the slow pace of action against Tripoli, President Assad appears to be determined to crush Syria's revolt quickly and firmly.